I play a lot of video games, shockingly. A lot of the games I play contain notes. I don't particularly enjoy reading notes in video games, and in this video I'm going to make it everyone else's problem. Spoilers for Chronos Before the Ashes and Remnant from the Ashes, also the opening of Bloodborne. Video games are unique as a medium because it allows you to, fairly easily, merge activities, so to speak. A book is for reading, puzzles are for puzzling, board games are for explaining the rules at length until everyone decides they're a little tired actually, and maybe we'll pick it up next time we're over. And why does Kyle keep bringing those games that require an hour-long walkthrough and a PhD to understand anyway? The game in the intro of this video is called Remnant from the Ashes. It takes inspiration from Souls games here and there. Bonfires, Estus flasks, punishing difficulty. Unlike Souls-likes though, that's not all it has to offer. Firstly, the game is very gun-focused, but it also lets you choose your difficulty, which, for Souls games, is practically unheard of. It has multiplayer options too. In fact, I want to say that it pushes you towards multiplayer in a lot of ways. The game becomes aggressively more forgiving the moment you add another player. I can say this confidently, having played through the game several times solo. Even more so when you attempt hardcore or survival mode, a setting where if you die, it's forever. Game over, no take-backsies. But if you're playing with another person, they can still revive you on the map. As long as one of you lives, you're fine. I like Remnant a lot. I streamed it years back on twitch.tv/Jinzy, and I played it off stream quite a bit after that. That was strange to me, actually. I'm generally more of a melee combat player. In Souls games, my go-to is a glass cannon dexterity build. I don't love ranged weapons, is what I'm saying. But Remnant has a lot more to offer outside of just guns. It does have melee weapons, but they aren't nearly as fun as the guns. You have your usual variety of snipers, shotguns, and pistols, but you eventually unlock some more interesting variations, like a neat little flamethrower or a crossbow with bouncing projectiles. Your guns also have mods that function much like spells would in any other setting. Black holes, homing missile bug swarms. You can become a sentient lightning storm, or maybe you want to summon a very good boy. The game is very versatile and lets you customize your playstyle so well that no matter what type of gamer you are, you'll find something you truly enjoy somewhere in your arsenal. Because the game also comes with talent points that are given out very consistently, so you never feel like you're wasting your time entirely. They're called traits in this case, and there are a lot of them. Most are unlocked by simply playing the game, others by honing in on a specific playstyle. Traits that let you walk faster, reload quicker, stealth quieter, or shoot your teammate a little less aggressively if they keep dying to your friendly fire. On top of that, there's rings and gear sets with strangely specific bonuses, sets that reward you for perfect dodging or using healing items, sets that turn you into a tank or make reloading your weapon a positive experience. That last one also has a gun to go with it that only ever holds a single bullet. Rings to fast roll even with heavy armor, or one that allows your heavy armored flops to deal 4 times the usual damage. The flop build was very overpowered for a good long while until it got nerfed. Remnant comes with little puzzles, alternate boss kills, and mini-events. It's easy to quickly hop in and re-roll a zone to try and find a piece of gear you're after for a few minutes. Because that's eventually the main draw to the game. Collecting all the gear, all the traits, completing your set. And that's fun to me, because the combat is good. It feels smooth, it feels responsive, and because of the trait system, there's always a reward at the end of the tunnel, no matter what you're doing. There are things to criticize about the gameplay decisions they made, of course, as always. But nothing that I'd care to write an essay about. Honestly, if survival mode and falling off ledges during it didn't exist, I'd have platinumed this game. Or if, I used the multiplayer function. Maybe one day. Remnant also has a story. Let's talk about that. Please remember all the nice things I said about this game just now. I really like Remnant. It's very good. I actually can't really tell you about the story of Remnant unless I also tell you about Chronos Before the Ashes, though. And if you don't know what Chronos is, even if you played Remnant, I can't really blame you. Chronos was a VR game originally, released in 2016, but it got a non-VR Steam release in 2020 on account of Remnant's success. In true VR game fashion, it's not fully functional, and the achievements are impossible to complete. I'm saying this purely to warn you not to waste your money, in case you enjoyed Remnant and wanted more. Remnant is good. Chronos is decent for a VR game. Do with that what you will. The entire story is told somewhat out of order, so I'll first catch you up on the before times. Before Chronos and before Remnant, but using information from both games. Let me set the stage. It's cold, it's underground, it's the army finding a bunch of mysterious ancient texts. They are the army, not mysterious ancient text experts, so they call in the scientists. One of them is crazy, as is mandatory in these stories. The crazy one is called Harsgard, and an entity starts whispering to him not long after arriving. Clawbone. Clawbone is very forthcoming with their information and tells them about world stones that allow you to peer into other dimensions altogether. And if only Harsgard could find a way to open such a world stone portal directly into Clawbone's world, that would be very cool and they could be friends forever and also burn the world to ash. But like together, as friends, friend-pocalypse bonding. Harsgard, as mentioned, is crazy, so he agrees and the scientists form Datla, Dimensional Aperture Translocation Apparatus. Bit of a mouthful, but they start working on the portal thing by connecting human beings to machines that then connect to a giant world stone in the center of their little cave situation. The human can then use the world stone connection to connect to a different dimension where they bond with that dimension's guardian. Why doesn't Earth have a guardian? You ask too many questions. The scientists can now see this brand new world through the eyes of said guardian. Sometimes things go wrong and the humans die, or the guardian dies, or things blow up, the usual mad science growing pains. The humans connected to these machines are also starting to act up, growing weirdly strong and violent. So Harsgard, blinding genius that he is, decides to keep them fully sedated from now on. They become known as the Dreamers. Eventually, the team figures out that they can also use these dreamer connections to the other worlds to travel there physically. They start having little excursions, bringing back new toys here and there, like a magical mirror that allows you to teleport around. The other scientists are also starting to hear Clawbone, and they're slowly going mad, and sometimes they spontaneously combust, for science. But then they manage to open a portal to Clawbone's world, and oh no, the portal works both ways! Clawbone's people, the Root, flood into the science ward that opened the portal and they start killing indiscriminately. The Dreamers die, the scientists die, the Root flood the rest of the planet, France tries to nuke itself to fix it, that doesn't work. Everyone dies save a single team that was out on an away mission at that time. When that team returns, they leave a note that just says, "Everyone is dead, the base is on lockdown." They then mention one of Chronos' game mechanics, a side effect of the World Stones. When you use them, you don't die. You're simply ejected from the World Stone you used, and you lose a year of your time. The team's commander, Andrew Ford, died. His whole team died. So now they're here, but their colleagues are not. They resolve to flee into Ward 13 and fortify the place against the Root. That's where we pick things up with Chronos.
Come, sit. Listen all. Listen well.
In Chronos, you get monologued on immediately because you are the smartest and strongest, so you have to leave to kill the dragon, Clawbone, and fix this Root business. Off you go. You start the game at 18 years old, but each time you die, you will age a year up to your 80th birthday, at which point you become effectively immortal in terms of age. We take our rowboat and enter the scientist's evil tower, where all the evil scientist wards are, and find the World Stone there. We activate it and step into the world of the Krell, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. In this world, we find a suspiciously overgrown tree that is definitely not Clawbone. Stop spoiling the story. The tree is very invested in our journey and wants to help, so it grants us the power of the Eye of Sauron, essentially magic, then points us towards this world's guardian. Because only if we kill the dragon's 3 guardians will we be able to slay the beast, it insists. But we're 18 years old and our prefrontal cortex has yet to fully develop, so we don't question our mission. We slay the guardian, and then we leave to slay another one in a lush, very blue world called Yesha. From there we visit a mysterious shifting place called the Labyrinth. The Labyrinth connects to many different worlds, but it also has a guardian that is blocked off by a fucking sliding puzzle.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
This puzzle took me an hour of my life, and the entire playthrough was only about 4 hours to begin with. After killing the final guardian in the labyrinth, Not Clawbone tells us we did a great job, and we may now see the dragon. It opens a red portal in the floor and we jump in to find ourselves in Ward 17. The ward that holds the Dreamer linked to Clawbone's world. We reach out our hand, but the Dreamer grabs us instead and pulls us into the Root world. Clawbone monologues about being the tree all along, and that we're wrong and he's right and everyone should die. When we defeat him, though, it turns out that this was what he had planned all along. He needed us here so we could replace the current Dreamer, whose link had become feeble. I don't know how Clawbone dying factors into this, and I'm not going to ask, but we stumble awake in the real world and it turns out that Harsgard hadn't died at all. He was now root-infested Harsgard, with a penchant for sleep drugs. He stabs us with a syringe and we fall into darkness, only waking up long enough to see Harsgard shove a Dreamer helmet onto our face. We boot up and enter the Matrix. We're the Dreamer now.
What can we do when our last hope fails? That you must discover.
This is where Remnant kicks off. In Chronos, we were already informed that we were the tribe's last hope, which makes Remnant's intro very funny. We're their last hope. Again. The tribe leader says it doesn't matter, they'll just keep sending bodies out to see if one will stick. She shoos us off to fix the problems caused by our Chronos character, and off we go in our rowboat again. Except this time, we don't reach the scientist's tower, because a storm smashes our boat into a nearby shore instead. We're beset by the Root immediately, and with our little rusty sword, we really don't stand a chance. The survivors holed up in Ward 13 have to run out to rescue us, and we wake up in bed, watched by a child we will never mention again. The ward is ran by Andrew Fort's granddaughter at this point, Ellen. She charges us with restoring the ward's generator, and then she gives us immediate access to their vendors. She also activates the World Stone in the center of the base, so we can go out and enjoy ourselves. She has a very trusting personality, but we take her up on her offer to find her grandfather, Andrew, to ask him how to destroy the Root for good. We zone into the wasteland that is Earth and eventually find a dilapidated church with an NPC of note inside, the Root Mother. She's connected directly to the Root and says she can help, but we have to protect her while she physically breaks away from the roots she's tied down with. We do so, and she scampers off to Ward 13 to inform us that we need to find a strange tower in the center of town next, so we can access the labyrinth. The strange tower is fairly easy to find, and inside is the Keeper. The Keeper is a mysterious entity that doesn't care about us, thinks we're incompetent, and mentions how our Chronos character messed everything up earlier. So he gives us access to the labyrinth without issue. From there, we can visit Rom to meet Ezlan, the Undying King. Ezlan holds the key to the labyrinth, an item we can use to unlock more worlds inside of the labyrinth. We can help him out by visiting a world completely unrelated to the main story, or we can kill him and take his key. I chose the latter so we can visit my favorite world sooner, Yesha. It's the Blue Jungle, and in this Blue Jungle, we finally find Andrew Fort, locked in a prison cell. He had no idea Clawbone was the source of the Root until now, but now that he knows, we can stop it. There's a teleportation mirror in Ward 13 that can grant us access to Ward 17, and once again we approach the Clawbone Dreamer only to be dragged into another realm. This new Dreamer gives us the "it's good to be dead actually" speech again, before turning into Dr. Octopus and transforming into a giant moth soon after. We kill it, the Dreamer spontaneously combusts, and the whole place starts blowing up as we run out to shore to find our Chronos rowboat. We've won. Or have we? Because that doesn't answer all of our questions at all. What happened to Harsgard? Anyway, there's DLC. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there's just not much here. Or is there? We'll get to it. The DLC revolves around Ward Prime. Ward Prime is where everything went horribly wrong, apparently. It's where the slab was found, and it's where the dimensions are wibbly-wobbly. There are no enemies inside this place, except when you touch a weird orb flower phenomenon. The orb allows you to interact with the dimension that seems to be bleeding into our reality somewhat. Vague images of monsters become actual monsters, and your job is to avoid them and shoot a different flower phenomenon until all the phenomenons have been shot, and you can finally activate the ward's power, which in turn gives you access to a brand new portal and a brand new world, Rhizome. Rhizome is the snow dimension. It was initially accessed by a dreamer called Clementine, and when the root burst through this ward to kill the dreamers present, her guardian instead managed to teleport her to safety inside of Rhizome, and that's where she remained, fighting off the root with her dreamer powers. We make our way through this world to find the Guardian's Sanctum. This is where the gigantic creature stands around imposingly, and where it is occasionally attacked by root portals. The attacks are getting fiercer by the day, and although it pains Clementine, she decides she has to leave her friend and savior behind to put an end to the root forever. We leave Rhizome, and she opens another portal, this time to the source of the root. The source, of course, is Harsgard. He's a gigantic root monster now, and defeating him only makes him angrier. But it also causes Clementine to materialize a super gun into our hands somehow, and with it we defeat him again. This doesn't actually kill him. What kills him is the root taking their ball and going home. They decide that the current course needs some adjusting, and so they take Harsgard's power away, dissolve the world stone in the center of the area, and disappear from Earth entirely. We've won. The world is saved.
You did it! He's gone! They're gone.
Why am I telling you the story of Remnant? I'm telling you the story of Remnant because it's not very good. I told you that I liked Remnant, but I like it for the gameplay element exclusively. That's very rare for a game that involves a story. Anyone who's been to my Twitch stream before, twitch.tv/Jinzi, knows I love a good story. It's usually my main draw to a game. But not Remnant, because Remnant's story is not very good. I'm not sure if the writers initially expected to want or need a storyline at all, but if they did, they should have probably started from scratch, because they included Kronos and now things are weird. The world stones in Kronos skip time ahead a year when you die, but Remnant doesn't. A vendor NPC in Remnant gives you your healing items, Dragon Hearts, in a batch of 3. He says you smell of destiny and you should have them. But Dragon Hearts are collected in Kronos throughout the different worlds. Did the NPC rifle through the Dreamer's pockets to get these hearts? There are some interesting references in Remnant related to Kronos as well, like the defeated Yeisha Guardian being carted off by a different quest NPC. That's fun and interesting. But if you didn't play Kronos, these things don't make sense. You don't see the cool stone tablet in Remnant, just Kronos. You don't know what the dragon is or the world stones. If you're genuinely interested in the story, Remnant is technically incomplete. And really, not many people played Kronos to begin with, even now, so they could have easily ignored it completely. In Remnant itself, a lot of things go unexplained, like the writers wanted to leave room for speculation. On the other hand, they over-explain certain things through notes. There we go, we got to the notes part. I don't like notes. But when I say notes, I don't mean real notes. By definition, notes are short, like a post-it or a quick comment. Whenever we call something a note in a video game, though, it usually encompasses any written record. That's what I'm talking about today. Because a lot of notes nowadays are not brief, they are the complete annotated works of William Shakespeare. Remnant has a lot of notes. It has actual short notes, literal post-its around the portals in the labyrinth. It has computer logs that sometimes include both the logs and reports on the same device, and both headers have multiple entries. There's the journal I opened at the start of this video. That one included around 12 or so pages. Journal pages can be found scattered around the various worlds, usually from Ford, but not always. These notes tell the actual story of Remnant. Without reading them, the main gist of the story is just, there are root, we must kill them. Look at all these science rooms. Anyway, killing root. And really that's all I needed, but they kept shoving the story in my face again, asking me, respectfully, to care. The DLC does nothing to help the problem here. Ward Prime itself has no enemies, like I said, but it does have computers. It has a ton of computers with notes and a few audio logs to add variety. Instead of standing still reading, now you can stand still listening. The DLC was specifically advertised as an expansion on the current story. Barely anyone played it, which honestly surprised me, given Remnant's popularity otherwise. But I can't really blame them either, because the story is not what anyone plays Remnant for. This DLC added Clementine Ex Machina and let us kill Harsgard. Maybe they realized he was a loose end, but honestly, I don't think this was the way to go about it. Remnant is a great example of a game that wanted to have a story, but didn't have the means or the space to tell you one. And sometimes it told a very short story, but ruined it with a note anyway. There's a side event in the game's adventure mode setting that lets you find a monkey key on a skeleton inside of a particular area. That same area has a door with a green monkey drawing on it. It's clearly a child's drawing, and inside this safe house you can find 2 more skeletons. 1 adult and 1 child. Pretty clear story here, or at least some room for easy speculation. The skeleton outside went for supplies but never made it back, and the small family starved. The skeleton outside might have locked them in there, but got jumped by the root and also died, condemning the family to starve as well. Either way, I wouldn't say it requires a note, but it has one. It makes it seem like the writers don't trust their players to make up their own mind. To make this very direct correlation. It's worth mentioning that the DLC did a better version of this type of note, though, in the form of a trapped soldier. He's sent in to deal with the root situation, but finds himself locked inside of a storage room during the fighting. There's a functional computer in there with him, so he first tries to use it to communicate with the people outside, but eventually realizes that it's not connected to any type of network. It's purely used for research notes. He can't break out himself, so he starts journaling instead. His notes get more and more erratic as time goes by, and he starts bringing up his friend Jerry in the entries. When we find this room years later, there's a fuse on the table. We need the fuse to restore power to the facility, so we pick it up and walk off to jam it into a fuse box. When we do, we can see the name Jerry's been written on the fuse with permanent marker. I like that. That was funny. This example also immediately solves the "why did you even write this?" problem that a lot of notes come with. The apocalypse-type games are especially heavy on the notes because everyone's dead, and apparently we need a narrator for the past. But if my house was surrounded by zombies, I don't think I'd stop to write a note that says, "House surrounded by zombies. Don't know if I'll make it. Low on supplies. Wish I still had the stash that I left out in the shack 5 steps south of the old tree trunk. I'm too busy putting on very heavy knitwear to avoid zombie bites, and also my spear needs sharpening." But in Ward 13, you can find a good few notes that are just terribly written. One of them details the root's initial attack. "They're everywhere," they type. "The root... ... the root creatures." Why are you typing it like you're saying it? You don't have to catch your breath on a keyboard. The scientist writes down their train of thought in the middle of a crisis situation. "They're after the Dreamers. They've killed all but Casa already. It's just a matter of time. Except they aren't pounding on our door. They must know we're in here. If they're after Dreamers, why would they leave us alone unless... ... Oh God, Casa, she's the gate. That's what I have to do then. We don't have any other choice. If we leave this room, they'll slaughter us. Why are you journaling, Kim? There's people that are dying." Harsgard himself is doing the evil version of journaling instead. He writes little notes and records entire audio logs about Clawbone the dragon who is whispering to him. If everyone in the building had been competent, then none of this would have happened because the mad scientist simply could not help himself. He had to journal about his mad plans. He was not hiding it.
Day 5, morning. They don't seem to have understood the message of Clawbone the dragon just yet, but I have nothing in return. These small-minded fools simply do not know what they are dealing with.
What do you think? Well, he's still matching my 401k, so...
And also, I can simply kill everyone.
It is what it is. The problem I have with notes, really, isn't the fact that they exist. It's the fact that they often replace other, more integrated methods, and in doing so, break up the flow of the gameplay. This happens more often in action games, where action is quite literally the draw of the gameplay, but it can even happen in what's essentially a walking simulator. A note is easy. You want to get your story across to the audience, but adding another cutscene or even a voiceover is both more difficult and more expensive. But once a game starts adding notes, they very quickly become inflated in number. And if any one of them contain important information, that signals to the player that not reading them at all means they might miss story beats. That's what happened in Remnant. A lot of the computers and journals you find say the same general thing. They discuss the experiment some more, talk about how Harsgard is acting strangely, the dreamers are erratic. A lot of Fort's journals are strictly about his journey around each world, with a few personal touches about his own life spread across. So you end up reading the same thing over and over, written by a different person. Upset scientists that are upset at the state of things. These computer logs aren't short either, and many of them sit under flickering lights, making them fairly exhausting to read on the eyes. But if I didn't read every note, I wouldn't know a thing about the final big bad of the Remnant 1 saga. I wouldn't know where the root came from, or why Ford left, or about the root mother being his loving wife. And notes can be done well. I like how Bloodborne uses them because they are very definitely just notes. Remnant does the same item descriptions with small stories thing that a lot of Souls games use, but Bloodborne is, as far as I know, FromSoft's only game with very direct notes. When you wake up at the start of the game, there's one on the chair that reads, "Seek pale blood to transcend the hunt." It's a single sentence. It's intriguing because we don't know what the pale blood is at this point, and because Bloodborne doesn't have a story, just lore, it doesn't matter if you read it or not. But if you do read the notes you find here and there, you can piece together some of that lore. The second note is a little longer and reads, "When the hunt began, the healing church abandoned us, blocking the great bridge to the cathedral ward as they burned old Yarnum to the ground on that moonlit night." Tragic. I wonder what that's all about. And then you go back to slapping werewolves, very little in the way of delays. If Bloodborne had made me read through half a page of lore in this case, I'd have been vaguely annoyed at best. But Bloodborne is content in giving me a setting where I'm allowed to fill in the blanks myself. Or not, it's unimportant. When it comes to an abundance of notes, the opposite is true. A game that wants you to understand and invest in their story, but without setting up interesting ways to convey that story. A while back, I streamed a set of indie demos on Twitch, twitch.tv/Jinzy. One of them was the millionth version of an At the Mountains of Madness adaptation. It had notes in the form of journal pages. They came with voiceovers. Here's how that went.
Our expedition fails under unforeseen circumstances. January the 10th, 1931. Rudimentary shack for the team with the supplies we brought. It should prove a better shelter than the number of to return in
Read
14
faster.
days with supplies. January the 12th, 1931. W. Dyer. Seaweeds and trilobites. These discoveries align with the strata they were found in, but they are of course exciting nonetheless. What is remarkable, though, is an enormous fossil that Mr. Gedney was able to unearth. It seems to be the imprint of a gigantic, hitherto unknown species of five-sided starfish.
You're done? Oh, thank God. Personally, I'd like everyone to stop adapting At the Mountains of Madness altogether because there are enough of them at this point. But they, and with them all Lovecraftian adaptations, also practically all use this journal structure to tell their story. If you were going for tension, it achieves the opposite effect. But Jinzy, I hear you ask, what are they supposed to do? Small indie studios don't have the budget or time to add long cutscenes with multiple voice actors or complicated, highly detailed environmental storytelling set pieces. And that's true, you're right. Most probably don't. So I'd like to offer some solutions that I hope are manageable to a point. Feel free to tell me if I'm asking for the sun and moon, of course. The first solution is be vague. I mentioned Bloodborne just now, and most Souls games in that vein operate in the same way. They have no story, only lore. This is perfectly suited for games that want to put their focus on the gameplay, like Remnant. We don't have to understand exactly what's going on, but there will be some of us, or maybe many of us, Who would like to theorize about what could have been happening when the event went down? Souls lore is a massive draw on YouTube because it's fun to think about. As long as the world is immersive enough and you give us 1 or 2 lines of interest. The Bunky Key quest is one of them. Remnant also has a zone called Letho's Lab that once again has a lot of notes, but without the notes it would have been a very intriguing area. You don't always have to shove the answers directly into our face. Don't be afraid to let us use our brain. Or otherwise, let YouTubers with low, comforting voices use their brain, so that other fans can flock to their videos and increase your game's visibility through it. It's a win-win situation. The second solution is to shorten and consolidate your notes, and then perhaps even play them out. Say there's a note that reads, "Mr. Bob and I really had it out last night. Our conversation started out courteous enough. He asked me about the entire bottle of wine I drank in a single sitting the day before. But I didn't like his tone of voice, you know? It was just a little too callous, like he was accusing me of something. I couldn't be sure, of course, and I didn't want to make too many assumptions, so I decided to just ask the man outright. I told him, 'If you've got something to say to me, Bob, just say it.' Anyway, I might have used a little too harsh of a tone myself just then, because I really didn't expect his reaction at all. He picked up that nice-looking vase on my desk and suddenly smashed it to pieces on the tile flooring before stalking off in a huff. I was left to clean up the mess on my own. The nerve of some people. That's a fairly long note about Mr. Bob right there, but if we take Remnant's note style as an example, where each situation around the lab is retold more than once, there's probably another note from another person's perspective. Janine was looking on from the other side of the office and just had to write her piece about the affair. Instead, you could play out the notes as vague memories. Take some blocky NPC models and turn them into shadows, or even turn it into an audio drama with over-the-top sound effects. Bob comes in and says hello, then asks about the bottle of wine in a mocking tone. Our note's protagonist answers with their snarky line, and a vase smashes on the floor. Sounds of disbelief from Mr. Protagonist and Janine across the hall. End scene. Does that mean you'd need voice acting? Yes, of course. But that's where solution number 3 comes in. If you don't think you can tell your story in a fun and engaging way, don't tell the story. If you need pages upon pages of notes to build the narrative, something somewhere has gone horribly wrong. Because at that point, you're better off just writing a book. I've played a lot of games over the years. I now stream them, twitch.tv/Jinsey, and write about them for a living. And that unfortunately means I've become more critical of certain overused crutches. Notes is one of them. More and more indie games are released on Steam every single year. That's not strange, making a game has become very accessible, and I love indie games. Some recent favorites of mine are Symphonia, Crypt Custodian, and Stray Gods. But we went from the 12 releases in 2006 to 8,673 in 2024. You have to do something more to stand out from the crowd. As much as I love books, you can't just be a book. Especially if you're adapting At the Mountains of Madness, that's already a book. What were you thinking? You're competing with gems like Undertale, Hollow Knight, and Stardew Valley. Some of the most popular games of all time are indie games. And as much as I want to give indies more grace in terms of development cost, you have to admit that the indie scene especially is very good at coming up with cool, creative solutions when it comes to storytelling. If that means the game will take longer to create, yes, that's the cost of creativity. Are you trying to make the game fast, or are you trying to make it good? An overflow of notes is a cop-out. I know you can do better than that. If you have any good suggestions for indie games with a wonderful story told in creative ways, let me know. I'm genuinely interested. Every so often I request a front page slot on Twitch to showcase indie games under or around 2,000 reviews on Steam. I have a small list to pick through already, but I'm happy to add a few more. Or you can just come and say hi. Twitch.tv/Jinsey. Oh, and don't put sliding puzzles in your game. Ever. Just generally speaking.